Thank you for your attendance at the City Council debate, and thank you for your attendance for this mayoral debate. To those listening online, you might be catching this on 97.9 XFM or 100.5 or 99.5 WCRA. As a reminder, this is available on effinghamradio.com and thexradio.com tomorrow or the next day if you'd like to catch a replay of it. Go over just a few brief reminders about how the forum will work this evening, and then we'll get started. Each candidate will be introduced by information that the three candidates have provided to the Chamber of Commerce, and they'll have questions coming to them this evening from the media panel. The questions have been pre-selected. The candidates have not been made aware of the questions before tonight's event. And each panelist will take a turn answering each question. You'll have 1 minute base time to answer the question. We'll start with Jeff Blumker down at the end, and he will be in alphabetical order, working our way down to Larry Meisenheimer and then Junior Willis. You'll have 1 minute to answer the question. Once we make it through three of you, you will have 30 seconds if you'd like to offer a rebuttal to anything that you heard during the other answers. At the conclusion of the questioning, which will conclude for those who are listening on the radio, we will wrap up the questioning at 8:25 and offer a 2-minute closing statement for each of the candidates at that time. Our questions this evening, for those who are just joining us on the radio, will be coming from our media panel, which includes Jeff Long, the editor of the Effingham Daily News, Greg Sapp, who's a station manager at Premier Broadcasting Company, Herb Meeker is a reporter with the Effingham and Topless News Report, and Tom Jameson, who's a news director at the Cromwell Radio Group. I'd like to thank our media sponsors for their co-sponsorship of tonight's event, and a special thank you to the Effingham Chamber of Commerce and the Legislative Committee for their efforts on putting this forum together. As a general reminder, if you happen to join us on the radio during the last forum, as many of you in the crowd may have recognized, we noticed some microphone issues, and we think we have those rectified, but if you can help us out, those are actually coming from cell phones. So if you have your cell phone on, if you could turn it off for us, we would certainly appreciate it. And not just silent mode or airplane mode, it actually needs to be off if you could, please. Our first question, actually before we get into questioning, how about we talk about who our mayoral candidates are? That would be a nice thing to do, wouldn't it? To my far right, in alphabetical order, I'll start with Jeff T. Blumker. Jeff is married to Nancy, and together they have 3 children. He's the executive director of Heart and Human Services for the past 5 years. He has 22 years in senior leadership positions in Effingham businesses. He's the current vice chairman of the Effingham Planning Commission. He's a current board member of the Effingham Zoning Board of Appeals and Effingham County Board of Health. Jeff is a past president of the Effingham Noon Rotary Club and the Effingham Unit 40 Educational Foundation. Jeff is also a past board member of the Effingham County Chamber of Commerce. Next to Jeff is Larry Meisenheimer. Larry is married to Lisa, and they have 3 children. Larry is currently employed as an Effingham Unit 40 bus driver and merchandiser for Kerner Distributor. He's a retired Effingham High School guidance counselor. He's a paid on-call firefighter for the Effingham Fire Department, a St. Anthony Junior High baseball coach, and Larry serves on the Trek board. He's a volunteer at the Effingham Performance Center with Upward Basketball and the Effingham Park District Special Needs Recreation. Seated next to Larry is Herman Junior Willis. Junior has 3 children and 4 grandchildren. He's the son of Herman and Patsy Willis. He's a partner in Willis Detective Agency, a licensed private detective, a retired Effingham police officer with over 30 years of service. He's a past president of the Effingham Fraternal Order of Police, a past member of the Labor Management Committee for the City of Effingham, a past member of the Effingham Police Union Negotiating Team. So our 3 candidates this evening for the mayor race in Effingham: Jeff Blumker, Larry Meisenheimer, and Junior Willis. At this time, we will go ahead and open up our questioning from the media panel. We will start with an alphabetical order. Jeff will take the first question, and we'll pass down to Larry, to Junior, and then have 30 seconds for rebuttal. Our first question comes from Jeff Long. Jeff?
Okay, we'll keep it simple. Why are you seeking election as mayor? Okay, well, first of all, I love Effingham. I'm a third-generation resident. My mother was born and raised here. I was born and raised here. My wife was born and raised here. My kids were born and raised here. I'm fully vested and 100% committed to the success of this community. That being said, I spent 10 years on the City Plan Commission, 10 years on the City Zoning Board. I enjoy dealing with those issues. In addition to that, I feel like I bring a business background that is needed, and I feel like we've maybe been a little off track on that for the past 20 years, and I'm honored to be able to offer that option to the people of Effingham.
Thank you, Jeff. Our next respondent will be Larry Meisenheimer.
Quite frankly, a lot of people have asked me that, and the reason I run is because you look for reasons to give back to your community, and Effingham has been very good to me, and I'm really a people person. I've enjoyed working with the community through the Effingham School District, the Park District, and my volunteer activities. It's important that you give back to your community, make it a better place for the next generation of citizens.
Thank you, Larry. Our next respondent will be Junior Willis.
I believe with 30 years of public service to this community has put me in a position to seek this position and further serve the people of this community. I love this town, lived here all my life, and I want to see it continue to grow, so I'd like to be a part of that.
Thank you, Junior. And I can't imagine why we would need 30 seconds of rebuttal to the question of why they would want to be running for the mayor's position. So we'll turn the microphone over to Larry. He'll take the second question, who will come to us from Greg Sapp. Greg?
Thank you, Eric, and thank you, Eric, by the way, for your good work tonight, serving as moderator for this forum. It's a sometimes thankless job, so you're doing very well.
Thank you.
Let's talk about, gosh, we have a lot of ground to cover tonight. A mayor, though, is often seen as a consensus builder among council members. Not every issue is popular, and not every issue is popular with every member. What qualities or skills do you see that you have that will make you a good consensus builder as mayor?
I agree. Building a consensus is really difficult. Sometimes there's difficult issues that the city will face. I think it's important that the mayor be a hands-on person that is available to the citizens of the community, because you're truly the voice of the people that selected you. The mayor is selected by the citizens, whereas the city staff, they're wonderful people also, but they're not hired by the citizens, they're hired by the council. Building a consensus, you need to be out and about, listen to all areas of the community, retired people, young folks, everything in between. People are out there, they have an opinion. If you're available, it's good to get as many opinions as you can and try to build a coalition. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. And Junior Willis?
I kind of feel that this kind of plays into my strengths. Having served this area for so long and in a position of a police officer, you run across all kinds, and negotiations is a very big part of keeping the peace and keeping things moving forward. Plus my experience as union president for 16 years, negotiating different contracts and different issues that came about, working with management. I've had a lot of experience dealing with trying to get both sides to come together and come to a conclusion. So I feel like I've kind of got an upper hand on that.
Thank you, Junior. Our next respondent will be Jeff Plummer.
My 27 years in senior management in small to medium-sized businesses here in Effingham, and I emphasize the fact that's in my hometown, forces you to learn how to hone your skills at building consensus. I'm not a micromanager. I like to surround myself with good people and get out of their way. Most recently, in the past 6 years, my time in Heartland Human Services probably played into that this issue more than any. I was thrown into a very difficult situation, and we have Heartland Human Services stabilized. We just ratified a union contract this past week, and that was all done by consensus. One other thing I want to mention, moderating meetings is an art. It's not a science, and that's where true consensus can be had in the trenches.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'd like to add that the staff at City Hall, they're amazing people. They're tremendous professionals. We see the great pride in the workforce in our community. It's important that as an elected official, you lean on their decision, but you remember the buck truly stops at the desk of the elected official, which the mayor would be the ultimate elected official.
Thank you, Larry. Junior, would you like an additional 30 seconds? No? Okay. Jeff, anything else to add? Very good. All right, our next question, I will go ahead and take. And Junior will be our first respondent on this question. Governor Rauner has proposed right-to-work zones, which would give local voters the power to decide if workers should be required to pay association dues or to join a union. These rights would apply to county, municipality, school district, or other units of local government. If this issue came before the city council and you were mayor, how would you respond? Junior?
First of all, I'd like to say I think that issue probably should be taken up at the state level. I do want Effingham to be competitive when work is done around here. I don't feel it is fair that we should lose work because not being competitive. So I guess how I would say I'd feel on that is I would be in support of the right to work zone.
Great. Thank you, Junior. Our next respondent will be Jeff Plumker, and if at any time any of the candidates want a question repeated, please feel free to ask. Jeff?
Really my response to this is very straightforward and simple. A truly free society doesn't force its people, doesn't mandate its people to belong to clubs. It's just the essence of being American, and people should have the right to decide whether they want to be represented by a union or not.
Thank you, Jeff. Larry Meisenheimer?
I think Governor Rauner needs to be commended for attacking something as difficult as this. Our past governors have just kind of kicked the can down the road and got us in a real mess. And really, it's something that needs to be addressed at the state level, and I hope he can build a consensus to get the job done. If it was just little bands of area that were right to work and other areas were not, it would make it really difficult to compete. And as far as competition is concerned, the fact that the state of Illinois is in such bad fiscal shape, that really hurts local municipalities and people trying to attract businesses to our area. So we're at a deficit because of the problems that we've had in Springfield. So heads up to Governor Rauner, and let's hope he can get it done.
Thank you, Larry. Junior, any additional comments, or any of the other candidates, any comments? Very good. We'll pass the microphone to Jeff, and he'll take the next question that will be coming to us from Herb Meeker.
Gentlemen, part of the city government's role is on deciding on liquor licenses, and some questions have come up on whether there should be certain limits. I guess there are certain limits in certain categories, but some people, of course, we all have a public question in a nearby community talking about liquor sales helping on economic growth. My question is, do you think that should be part of the criteria on liquor sales, or I guess expanding liquor licenses in the community, or should there be some other concerns weighed on that issue?
I'm going to fall back to my last response. In a truly free society, we should have that choice. If somebody wants to come to Effingham and they want to join the free market system and they want to sell alcohol or distribute alcohol, that should be their right. It shouldn't be government's position to limit their ability to do that. Liquor ordinances are there for guidance. They're there for management, and that's the key. That's the operative word here, is management. Restriction, I don't feel like we should create liquor ordinances that are so restrictive that it limits the free market system.
Thank you, Jeff. Our next respondent will be Larry Meisenheimer.
I think the liquor license and the ordinances that we deal with here have done a pretty good job. I like the fact that the convenience stores don't serve cold alcohol. I know, you pull in there to get gas and you go up to the cooler and you grab, it makes it very, very attractive for somebody to drink and drive. So, I know having a liquor store, they can still go in there and get it, but at least they're not getting their gas on the road already. So I think that the city should be commended for the fact that there aren't just every bump in the road has a liquor license.
Thank you, Larry. Our next respondent will be Junior Willis.
I personally don't see any problem with someone who wants to open a business. I know that Mayor Gillenwater has refined, I guess would be the word, maybe made it, the laws that are in place, made them, and the ordinances on liquor, he's refined those and made business owners abide by them a little stricter, and it caused a little bit of a rift, I think, in the past with a couple of our local business owners, but they've all learned to accept that that's the way it's going to be, and so I personally, if someone wants to come into our community and open up a liquor store, as long as they abide by the rules, I don't have any problem with that.
Thank you. Any rebuttals or additional 30 seconds that any candidates would like?
I'd like to commend Merv for attacking this problem and trying to provide a blueprint and a map for the governing of the liquor ordinances. Before, it wasn't as organized as it is now, and he's created a map that makes it possible to make it a logical decision whether to grant additional liquor licenses, as far as, and also rules and regulations for the liquor establishments. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. And Larry will be taking the next question, which will come to us from Tom Jameson. Tom?
The mayor holds the final vote during city council meetings, and this at times can be the deciding vote. It's one thing to make that vote when, in either direction, when the four commissioners are all in agreement, but how do you approach a decision when the opinions of your fellow elected officials are split and you actually are the deciding vote that makes the call?
From my experience as a city commissioner, the mayor is really just one of 5 votes, and in your evaluation of way you vote on an issue is based on the consensus that you've built with all the different people that you've talked, and they examined the issue from every conceivable point. So really, the mayor isn't really like the tie-breaking vote any more than like a commissioner would be in a 3-2 vote. But every decision needs to be carefully weighed. It's not something you take lightly. It's something that's very important.
Thank you, Larry. Our next respondent will be Junior Willis.
First of all, I would think that I would have my homework done before the meeting and know what is on the topic for that evening, and I would do my research and make a decision on what I feel would be good and best for the community, not necessarily who voted on what.
Thank you, Junior. And our final respondent on this question will be Jeff Blunker.
The mayor and the commissioners are obligated to maintain objectivity in our decisions. There's no place for personal philosophies. We can maybe use that to do some discovery, but we're there to, the mayor and the rest of the city council is obligated to do the right thing for the city, the citizens in the city of Effingham as a whole.
Thank you, Jeff. Any additional comments? Or any of the other candidates? Junior? Okay. Junior Willis will take our next question. It will come to us from Jeff Long. Jeff?
Okay. I had asked this of the city council candidates, but I want to hear your answers as well. Governor Rauner has proposed cutting in half the local government share of state income taxes as a way to deal with the state's financial problems. Do you support that plan by the governor? And if it does eventually come to pass, how would you make up for that loss?
Junior?
Well, as we all know, the state's in a financial mess. Something's got to be done. I don't want to see a community like ours who has, at least for the last 4 years, balanced the budget and abided by the rules, and the commissioners currently have done a very good job of financially of keeping Effingham running. We are fortunate with the interstates and everything we have here. It's going to really hurt smaller communities around this area, I feel more. I think seem like we're a little bit more prepared for this. Some things have got to be done. I would support it. I hope it doesn't happen to be that drastic, but we'll deal with it and make cuts necessary to keep the budget balanced.
Thank you, Junior. Our next response will come from Jeff Lunker.
I won't sit up here and tell you that I have a magic bullet for state budget cuts. Anyone who does is kidding themselves and you. When you hit a financial crisis, you have to hope your leadership is able to pull together the team and manage by consensus and prioritize the services and issues necessary to run the city. If your mayor doesn't have that skill set or that experience, if your mayor hasn't hired people and fired people and signed paychecks, if your mayor hasn't put together a budget from scratch, there is a likelihood that he will fail you and the team when a financial crisis hits. In my 27 years helping run some of Effingham's more dynamic businesses, I've seen some pretty tough financial spots, especially when the recession hit in 2008. I am conditioned to take the pain and focus the team on effective solutions.
Thank you, Jeff. Larry Meisenheimer?
He mentioned the recession. I was a commissioner during the last recession, and we had a real bind on our hands. The revenue wasn't matching. We were in a budget deficit. The council got together. We restructured the structure of the workforce. We also hired a city administrator, and here 4 years later, the budget is balanced. There's a 5-year roadmap for projected projects that are coming down the road. As far as if the governor would cut the $630,000, it would result in a delay in some of the capital projects that are on the books, as well as a restructuring of some of the wants and the needs of the community.
Thank you, Larry. Anyone else like Junior? Additional time?
I just want to say that the last thing I would do if this comes into play is lay off any city employee. I think if we lose $600,000 in our budget, I would be more in favor of postponing projects to the next year, year and a half, whatever it would take, but laying people off would be my last resort.
Thank you, Junior. And Jeff?
I just want to comment that I'm no stranger to this arena. The past 6 years at Heartland Human Services, we've been taking cuts in healthcare services. And again, there's no easy answer. You take it issue by issue, scenario by scenario, and it's all about pulling the team together, managing by consensus, and prioritizing the necessary issues.
Thank you, Jeff. Larry, would you like additional time? No. Good. The question will start with Larry. And this question will come to us from Greg Sapp.
So many things to ask you. You focused on getting a consensus, but I want to talk about your work as the administrator for the city. Better phrase would be the representative for the city. You're going to work with people from other communities on projects or initiatives. You're going to work with the state. You're going to work with government officials, legislators. Talk about how you represent the city and what characteristics, what experience, what background you have that would make you the person that would be the best face for the city.
I think that's a good question, by the way, and difficult to answer as well. I could say, could you repeat that for me? I would think that my experience through education, the park district, and some of the things I've done in the community have given me kind of a well-rounded base for being the face of the community. And it's important that that the mayor listens to what the people are saying, because, you know, the voters actually select the mayor. They're the ones that put you in office. It's important that you represent their wants and their needs. And as far as working with other communities, it's important that you get out and meet with those folks and work on some projects. But it's important that you give the main emphasis to the people that elected you. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Our next response will come from Junior Willis.
I agree with some of what Larry said. You got to get out and mingle. I think, falling back on my experiences as a law enforcement officer for so many years, I've dealt with all kinds, good and bad, and I seem to mold myself to the situation at the time and feel like I would represent the city in a nice fashion in that respect. We are elected by the majority to do what's right for the community, and I would make sure that that would be my main priority.
Thank you, Junior. Our next response will come from Jeff Blunker.
I spent the past 27 years building relationships. That's not only in my business life, but also as an active and engaged community leader. And you build those relationships locally, regionally, and at the state level. You build those relationships with stakeholders and partners, and you create networks. And I hope to be able to leverage those relationships and networks to basically sell Effingham. That's what I will see that's why I see the job of the mayor as being able to sell Effingham, and you do that through the relationships that you develop through your various professional endeavors and civic activities.
Larry?
I might add that when we were city commissioner, we also went to the Illinois Municipal League, and we networked with the folks up there, and we made a lot of connections through different activities that we had. But it's important that you lean on the professional staff that are at City Hall. They're very intelligent, they get the job done, they have great pride in what they do.
Junior, would you like additional time? Jeff, any additional time? Great. Junior will start our next question for us, and I'll go ahead and bring that question to you. If you were elected mayor of Effingham, tell me specifically what the first few days of office would look like for you.
Well, I'm hoping I could lean on the present mayor a little bit for some good advice. I've met Merv a long time ago, but we never really got a chance throughout the years, both of us being in law enforcement, to really communicate much. And but in the last couple of months, I have, and got a great respect for the guy. So I would definitely be looking for him for some pointers on how to move forward smoothly. There's a great staff in place. I know most of them for years and have a lot of respect for what they do. That would not change, and I just look forward to working with them to better our community.
Thank you, Junior. Next response will come from Jeff Blunker.
The first opportunity, if I'm elected mayor, the first thing I'm going to do, the first opportunity I get is going to be to pull together that administrative team, that senior administrative team, and get their input. Do an environmental scan, so to speak. Do a SWOT analysis. Look at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. We'll get on the same page, and then we'll develop a vision.
Thank you, Jeff. Next response from Larry Meisenheimer.
I think that my first person I would talk to would be to Merv and kind of see what kind of a relationship and how you go about dealing with the current staff at City Hall. Yeah, it is important to assemble the City Hall crew. They're very good professionals, and they would make a seamless transition. I think it's going to be a lot easier for the next mayor than what it was previously when you had 5 brand new people in charge of the city. So now it's a little more seamless as far as switch from one to another. I'd also check in Norma's office, see what's going on at the Chamber of Commerce, work with those folks, and then also talk to some of the community leaders around the community.
Thank you, Larry. Would anyone like to make additional comments?
I would like to add that I think it would also be a very smooth transaction, mainly because of the hiring of Mr. Arndt. I've attended, I think he was hired right about the time I retired, but we've got to talk here and there over the last few years, and I think he does an excellent job, and I think that would make a very smooth transition for the next mayor.
Jeff, additional time? No, Larry?
I'm a hats off to the City Hall staff. The budget meeting the other day, they laid out the next 5 years of capital projects, and it's a want list that, you know, it could be subject to change, but the roadmap is in place, and there might be adjustments to be made, but things are in order, ready to move with the next mayor.
Thank you, Larry. Our first respondent on the next question will be Mr. Blumford, and this question will come to us from Herb Meeker. Herb?
Let's just talk about the opposite. You are in office, and you look at your cell phone, and there's several messages, and one of them involves CNN, possibly Bill O'Reilly, and some nut named Herb Meeker. In other words, it's not going to be your day. Herb Meeker. But anyway, how do you react to this? And how do you handle, how you work with this? Because whether it's CNN or the little old lady whose basement is flooded, it's a crisis. As mayor, how do you deal with it?
Jeff?
Well, media relations are critical, particularly with municipalities or any government position. And you'd like to hope that you've done a good job ahead of time of developing good relationships with the media, being open, being transparent. And you hope that if you've done that there will be respect shown both ways as issues are uncovered and dealt with. I would probably also fall back on my administrative team. Before responding to any issues, I would want to make sure I understood everything that was going on with that particular issue, and would try to respond effectively and openly, but also in a manner that doesn't put the city of Effingham or the administrative team in a hole.
Thank you, Jeff. Next response will be from Larry Meisenheimer.
I'm sure that would be one of the, you'd have the pucker factor that morning when that happened. I think you'd want to get the City Hall team together, and I'm sure there's a plan in place for crisis management. You want to make sure that you have somebody as the spokesman for the city so that you don't have several people out there creating more trouble, and just go with the plan that's in place and be ready to roll.
Thank you, Larry. Junior Willis?
I doubt if CNN or Bill O'Reilly rolls into town, it's not going to be because of some elderly woman's flooded basement. So I'm guessing it's going to be a major disaster, and we have the perfect personnel already in place, trained. I've trained with them, so when these disasters occur, we're ready to roll and do it right. I know that for a fact. There is media personnel, people assigned to speak to the media and keep them informed. So my first response would be find out what the problem is and get the right personnel from the city involved and work on a solution to fix it.
Thank you. Would anyone else like additional time? Okay. Our next question will be directed Larry Meisenheimer giving the first response, and it will come from Tom Jameson.
Yeah, Effingham recently has received statewide acknowledgement through the Enjoy Illinois campaign, through the Firefly Grill, and then nationally with the Google East City Award earlier or late last year. How can the city of Effingham use those kinds of honors to their advantage to continue to grow and benefit both its residents and its visitors?
I think Effingham has an outstanding reputation around the area. I know my family's from Taylorville, and they think something's in the water here. There's so many good things going on. As far as technology, the three new businesses out on the northeast side of town, we have three great places that come and use a lot of technology, and I think that it's something that we should really be proud of, that a community here in the middle of nowhere has this high-tech capability, and we have a lot of people that are working in the service industry through Patterson and Midland Bank and the Heartland system out there. So we have some really great things to brag on, and technology is an important part of the next generation of jobs.
Thank you, Larry. Junior Willis?
I think surrounding communities are very envious of what we have here. Like I said earlier, we managed to balance the budget. We're not operating in the red, which goes to careful planning by the council and all the administrative people involved. There's a lot of growth to be had. I think everybody's done a fine job in the past with making Effingham very competitive and a place where people want to come.
Thank you, Junior. Jeff Blumker?
If I'm elected mayor, one of my primary focuses is going to be on tourism, recreation, and entertainment. We have an incredible tourism fund. We have incredible support from the local businesses. I've been meeting with a lot of the business leaders regarding the opportunities we have out there for tourism, for sporting events, for downtown events, and they're ready to kick it up to the next level. And they just need the support of City Hall. They need the mayor to get in there and help them sell. I think there's grant money out there available to help us with this endeavor, and with our location, with two interstates crisscrossing right here in central Illinois, we're just primed to be able to leverage that type of opportunity, and I'd really love to be able to get in there and get after it.
Thank you, Jeff. Any additional comments? Larry?
I'm a volunteer at the Effingham Performance Center, and I was also on the council when they were going through some hard times and restructured, and I made a habit of asking folks where they come from when they come to the theater, and it truly is work, and people are coming in here and spending money on gas and restaurants and things like that. With the sports center opening up later this year, we're going to create a whole new industry of sports tourism. It can take us places that we've never been before, and the already big hotel motel fund will continue to grow, as well as sales tax.
Thank you, Larry. Junior Willis? Jeff, anything to comment?
Larry brought up a good point, the Workman Sports Complex. I believe if the Workman Sports Complex will prove itself, I've met with some people who understand the business side of sports, and they feel there are a couple of other venues. And again, just because of Effingham's location, people coming to and from Chicago, Indianapolis, St. Louis, Memphis, there are several other venues that we can leverage if the Workman Sports Complex proves itself.
Thank you, Jeff. Our next question will be directed to Junior Willis first, and this question will come to us from Jeff Long.
I was kind of interested in the whole debate over the medical marijuana proposal, and I'm not necessarily asking what your position on that was, because it's done and over with, but I am interested what you see the role of the mayor in sort of leading that discussion, maybe encouraging discussion, or maybe just use that as an example of if you had been mayor, how would you have guided how the city and the residents who were divided on the issue dealt with it?
Junior?
First of all, I think the citizens of Effingham could have been a little bit more well-informed about what that was all about. Just talking to people on the street, I think there's a big fear that we're going to have this 20-acre bog field out on the outside of town, and kids are going to be breaking in there and stealing the plants and using it for illegal purposes. My understanding is this is gonna be like a factory type setting, indoor greenhouse, with armed guards 24/7, by the way, which I believe is gonna pay like $50,000 a year per guard. So I would have liked myself to have a little bit more information about what it was all about before I make a decision on whether I would vote for it or not.
Thank you, Junior. Our next response will come from Jeff Blunker.
You know, this issue kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier about the obligation of the mayor and city commissioners to do what's right for the city as a whole, and to put their personal philosophies in their back pocket when it's time to consider big issues and big opportunities of this nature. From my perspective, that issue was a four-legged stool. There was a legal filter that had to be considered, and it passed that. There was a scientific filter that had to be passed, and it has. We know that medicinal marijuana helps people who are ill. There's a business model that had to be considered, and by all accounts, that was going to be a moneymaker. The last leg of that stool is personal philosophy, and that's the least objective of all the filters, and probably should have been weighed the least as well.
Thank you, Jeff. Larry Meisenheimer?
First of all, medical marijuana is legal in Illinois, so we kind of sensationalized the issue and made it sound like the west side of Effingham was going to be glowing with smoke and a lot of Cheech and Chong type vehicles running through town. That really never was going to happen. These were good high-paying jobs with chemists and things like that. And I know from my experience with Merv, he's the straightest shooter in the whole world. They worked on the drug task force many years as a state policeman. He thought it was a good deal for the community, so it had to be a good deal. I think that I know a lot of people that have chronic pain issues, and medical marijuana is one of the few things that can provide them some relief. So unfortunately, we lost sight of the true benefit of this because of the sensationalized that we thought all the high school kids are going to be smoking. That truly wasn't the issue.
Anyone else? Jeff?
Just like that, I'm on the city plan commission, and that board is made up of a good cross-section of citizens from different walks of life. We got to get involved with the discovery side of this, and we got to hear a lot of strong emotional testimony about this, and I can just tell you that this issue didn't take much more than 15 minutes to be approved by the plan commission.
Thank you, Jeff. Go ahead and hold on to the microphone. We'll let you be the first respondent on the next question. It's going to come from Greg Sapp.
Thank you, Eric. Weighing two options here. Both of these are potentially controversial for different reasons, though. Let's talk about bike paths. The city adopted a plan to stripe streets and have a developed network of bike paths through the city that ideally was going to lead to the Trek trails. That plan was adopted, so the city still has it. It's never been implemented. If you're the mayor, are you going to make that among your priorities?
Well, it's tough for me to be objective about this because I'm a bike rider. That's how I get my exercise. I ride my bike at 6 a.m. And part of the reason I ride at 6 a.m. is just to stay out of traffic. But I think there's a bigger issue here. And there's maybe some tax issues and funding issues involved there. But I think the bigger issue that the federal government and the national healthcare leaders are pushing towards is a more active and healthy lifestyle. And trying to create infrastructure that enhances that and promotes that. And you just can't argue with that. There's some people, not everybody can walk, not everybody can run. I have bad knees. I have to ride a bike. And so that certainly is something that, but again, you've got to take into consideration the good of the order. What do the citizens of Effingham want? But I think that's a topic that's worth some good, vigorous discussion.
Thank you, Jeff. Larry?
I believe that the current council had applied for a grant to take care of much of this pavement marking, and really when when we talk about implementing a plan, it's not redoing the streets or building separate paths. We're talking about the existing footprint of the streets, and it's restriping, signage, and things like that to make it share the road. I think without a plan, it's just kind of willy-nilly to get to the truck system, and the truck system has been a great asset to the community. And without this access to it, or a planned access to it, we just kind of leave it open for every kid or every family's way through the town. And when the people came in, took a look at our town, they couldn't believe how many nice wide streets we had. They were just bragging on how easy it would be, and mainly it's just moving stripes over and putting some signs up. And anything we can do to promote people to be healthy is good, get people off the couch.
Thank you, Larry. And we'll pass the microphone to Junior Willis.
I think you asked if that was a priority. Among the priorities. Again, I guess that kind of goes back to what the governor does, cutting budgets, or our income tax. That would play a factor in it. If this is done by city personnel, we don't have the personnel we had 10 years ago or 15, so I know for a fact some of the departments are working on a shoestring group, so to speak. They're just getting by with the manpower they have. I think it's a good idea if the money's there and we've got the time and the resources to stripe those bike paths. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you, Junior. Anyone else like additional time? Larry, we'll let you hold the mic and pick up go ahead.
You know, after they finish plowing the snow each year, the streets have to be restriped anyway along the edge line. So you're talking about a minimal cost to make the first steps. And the first steps of the trek trail have made the whole thing possible. Until you get something on the ground that they can look at, or maybe just a short piece of street that's marked and everything, and everybody get an idea of what we're looking at, makes it easier for a more progressive attitude towards striping the streets and providing access for bicycles.
Thank you, Larry. Go ahead, hold on to the microphone, unless someone else, Jeff or Junior, would you like 30 seconds? I'll go ahead and bring you the last question before we start our closing statements. And first respondent will be Larry Meisenheimer. And the question is, what does Effingham look like 10 years from now?
Well, first of all, 10 years from now, I'll be a little bit older. I'll still be out running the streets of town. I think that Effingham will continue to grow. I think we keep our eye on the prize. That economic development is something that City Hall works very hard on. Our current employers are blessed with a wonderful workforce. A lot of the employers have bragged about how hard our people work, and the interstate system is our greatest physical asset. It's easy in, easy out. I can see lots of things happening with the restaurants and shopping and the sports center and the whole sports concept. Sports tourism is a huge industry, and it's something that's almost recession-proof. The last thing that you give up is your discretionary spending for your children. You all think they're going to be the next Michael Jordan, although we know the chances aren't real good of that. But in 10 years, I can see Effingham doubling in size, having twice as many jobs, and being the crown jewel of Southern Illinois.
Thank you, Larry. Junior Willis?
Well, in 10 years, I probably won't have any more hair than I do now. You can relate. I see another interstate exit on the south end of town. I see more business in that area with not just jobs, well-paying jobs that people can raise their family on. The one thing I hate to see, and speaking from experience, is we raise our kids, they love Effingham, they go to college, and never come back. There's, not the opportunity here that they can get other places for those better paying jobs. And I'd like to see that change.
Our next response will come from Jeff Blunker.
Well, this is kind of fun. I mean, this is where you're asking us to dream a little bit. What I see is a Maple Street overpass. I see a retail corridor, a frontage road from Keller Drive to 4th Street. I see an effort to leverage some of the really fascinating architecture that we've seen pop up out in the high-tech park, much like they do over in Columbus, Indiana. I see the Workman Sports Complex being an asset and a real draw, and I see a hockey complex being developed right along with it. I see an array of downtown events that bring a steady stream of people coming to Effingham to spend dollars.
Thank you, Jeff.
I could see Effingham becoming a distribution center even more than we currently are. Sherwin-Williams has been real successful, as well as FedEx. I could see with the Outer Belt West Corridor and the easy on, easy off from the interstate that we could become a real regional hub of distribution for even more than we currently do.
Thank you, Larry. Junior, would you like additional time? Jeff, any additional time?
I want to concur with what Larry just said. I was remiss in not bringing that up. I spent time in the logistics industry, and the visionaries that were involved with creating the logistics that are here now saw it, and it's still there. It's still a huge opportunity for Effingham because of our central location and because of our transportation infrastructure.
Thank you, Jeff. That concludes our questions from the media panel and myself. And at this time, we'll go ahead and move into our 2-minute closing statements for the candidates. And as I mentioned earlier, they were drawn by a random drawing prior to the forum. And the drawing went Larry Meisenheimer, Jeff Blumker, followed by Herman Jr. Willis. Larry?
First of all, I'd like to thank the 2 shortest members of the Heimer for Mayor Committee for showing up, my wife and my daughter. They're both about 5 foot. Effingham has been my home for almost 40 years. This town has given my family so much, and I want to make sure it continues to provide for our younger generation. They need jobs and the kind of amenities that will keep them engaged in our community. I am a hard worker. I am not one to sit around and wait for things to happen. I think my track record shows that. I'm passionate about seeing Effingham continue to move forward, and I will work tirelessly with the city administration, the city commissioners, county government, and business leaders of this great city. As I have stated before, I have many friends who are business leaders, but I also have just as many friends who are down on their luck and looking for work. I want to see Effingham meet the needs of both of those groups. I have the education, the ability, and the experiences needed to be the next mayor. My time spent as city commissioner gave me an invaluable insight to the workings of the city government here and the needs of our citizens. I'm not only a good listener, but a compassionate person who truly wants to make Effingham a community for everyone. Being mayor is more than just making business decisions. It is about taking the time to listen to the people and working with a team for solutions. It is about being trusted and accountable. This will be my full-time job. Vote for leadership that listens and gets results for its people. I would greatly appreciate your vote on April 7th. Vote Meisenheimer for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. And our next 2-minute closing statement will come from candidate Jeff Blumker. Jeff?
I want to thank the Effingham County Chamber of Commerce for pulling these events together for us. They're the hardest working chamber in downstate Illinois, and they're a true asset to the region. Folks, the voters are the board of directors, and on April 17th, they're going to hire the CEO of an $80 million corporation called the City of Effingham. We have to make this election about qualifications. Most $80 million corporations insist that their CEOs have business experience, management experience, and leadership experience. Why should we be any different? I bring a unique perspective. I've spent 21 years in the private business sector working with some of the best business minds in the Effingham area. I've spent the past 6 years at Heartland Human Services learning how to take care of the poor, work with unions, and deal with the state of Illinois. I'm a fiscal conservative, and I believe we have to have strong working relationships with the local and regional partners such as the county board, the Chamber of Commerce, and surrounding towns. I believe in strong and effective police and fire departments and will make sure they are properly supported. As I mentioned before, I'm a third-generation Effingham resident. My mother was born and raised here. I was born and raised here. My wife was born and raised here, and my kids were born and raised here. I'm 100% vested in this community and committed to its success. I wish you could see into my heart to understand how deeply I believe I'm the right person at the right time for this role. Put me to work for you. Vote for Jeff Blunker for Mayor of Effingham on April 7th. Your vote will be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Jeff. And our final closing 2-minute statement will come from Junior Willis. Junior?
Thank you very much for coming out to our candidate forum for Mayor of Effingham. The one thing I clearly learned while trying to keep the peace and enforce the laws in Effingham is that common sense and the classroom of life seem to trump everything when a crisis occurs. Common sense is my best qualification. I know what's right, and others usually agree. It seems to me this is the singular most characteristic that's missing in the political leadership of our time. I think of myself as a man of the people, and I want to make good decisions for Effingham. I love this community. It's the best city in Illinois, and there's no better place to raise a family. I have worked for 30 years to keep our town safe, and it is safe. We have a dynamic economy, an aggressive city administration working constantly to bring more businesses and opportunities to Effingham. We have wonderful educational leaders and updated schools. Our infrastructure is the best in South Central Illinois. All of us want to expand and improve the successful blueprint. Many of the mayors in Effingham's past have been blessed with business skills. Effingham has equally been blessed with economic prosperity and a budget surplus. We may be moving into a time when budgets will have to diminish or revenues somehow increased in order to continue seeking aggressive growth in our community. Where will these funds come from? I believe that finding ways to conservatively invest dollars in projects that will develop and expand Effingham's horizons, such as the recent move to town by Beck's Hybrids, are the way to go. Subsidies producing red ink have to be eliminated so those funds can be better utilized. These decisions play right into my strengths, common sense, and doing the right thing to benefit the greatest number of citizens. Thank you for listening, and I would appreciate your vote on April 7th.
Thank you, Junior. And thank you to each of our candidates for taking the time to be here this evening, and more importantly, for running for office and agreeing to represent the city in the mayor's office if elected. I'd like to thank everybody who came tonight. Thanks to Unit 40 and all your work on the facility here and allowing us to be here. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for your great efforts and the legislative committee that puts these forums on. And a reminder that if you want to catch a replay of this debate, it's available on thexradio.com as well as effinghamradio.com in the next couple of days. And if you have any interest, which obviously you do, and to those listening on the radio, please get out and vote on April the 7th. The future of our city depends on quality leadership. Thank you very much for coming tonight.